remarks. So the floor is yours. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jen, and colleagues from around the world. We are happy to have you today. This meeting has been in preparation for some days, and we're happy to have it today. So I just have a brief remarks on behalf of the organizers. I have a background. This planning for this workshop started some weeks, months, and years ago. Our first encounter with RIMA, that is a Resilience Index Measurement and Analysis, was in 2018 when we had a training workshop organized by FAO in Nairobi, Kenya. And after that meeting, I decided to follow up because I like effective impact of any training event. I know it takes a lot to train people, and when you train people and people don't use the knowledge, it's not good. So we'll try to follow up with the Nigerian team in towards the end of 2018. So we're able to organize a workshop in Abuja in 2019 to follow up with more participants in the country. And that was a basic RIMA. Then we followed up with advanced RIMA in 2019. Therefore, today's training workshop is to build on existing relationship that we have with the FAO RIMA team to expand this network beyond Nigeria, and as we also see, even beyond Africa, as this list of participants, at least for those who registered for the conference, will say that even though 80% of the people that register are from Nigeria, but we also have, from Africa, we also have other people from other continents who have also expressed their interest in this. And that is a good thing for FAO to say that, yes, this may be an African center training for now, but there are also interests from other continents of the world. Given the participation from Africa, we also try to look at the distribution of people from Africa. I would say that most of the people, participants from Nigeria, at least almost equally distributed to 1/3 from Nigeria. And we have also from Benin and the rest from other parts of the continent. And this gives us a good leverage to build on this partnership. Today's event, we have 2 hours of the training, and 3 facilitators from FAO will be taking us through the things we need to know. And I just want to, at this point, appreciate our colleagues from FAO. In absentia, Marco, who is the head of the team from FAO, has been a wonderful friend. And Jen, since we met last year or so, she has been so wonderful. My friend Hojo, whom I also met at a meeting recently. Benedicta, is the first time I'll be meeting you, perhaps online. So it's a pleasure to have all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to today's training. Please prepare to take copious notes. The meeting is being recorded, so you will have access to the recording later. But much more than that, please take your notes by your side and take as many information as you like to have. And please, when it comes to the time of question and answer, please do use the chat room, because we expect a lot of participants. It will be easy for us to go through the chat room and pick your questions. So you are welcome. That's all for me. Bye. Over, Jane.
Thank you so much, Wale. Thank you for this opening remarks, and it's great also to have an overview of the participants and see which countries are represented and everything. So I see some questions in the chat regarding the course materials. So of course, we will make sure to circulate the materials, so the presentation that we will present today, and also any other resources that you can use in order to get more familiar with RIMA. So I will now share my screen. So let's say that this training is divided in two parts. The first part that I will present with Mansamasso is related to the theory. So what is the RIMA methodology, how it works, what is the logic behind how to calculate the index, etc., etc. And then the second part that Benedetta will present is how to calculate the index in practice. So you will see that we've been developing a tool that is called Shiny RIMA, which is very, very easy to use. And basically, everything is automatized. So you can have the index calculated automatically once you have a clean data set, of course. So let's start with an introduction on RIMA. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
It's visible. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
great.
we can see your screen. Yes.
Great. Okay, so as I said, this first part is on the RIMA methodology. So RIMA stands for Resilience Index, Measurement, and Analysis. So first, a very brief, very few words on the concept of resilience. So you know that resilience can mean a lot of things. In the context we are working at FAO, etc., we are looking at the resilience to food insecurity. So the definition that we usually use in order to define this concept and then try to measure it is the capacity that ensures that adverse shocks and stressors do not have long-lasting adverse development consequences. So this is a dynamic concept that basically considers the effects of shocks and the capacity to bounce back after a shock, a negative shock occurs, without putting at stake people's food security and well-being. So as you can see on the graph, for example, this illustrates the idea. There is a shock that reduces your food security, reduces well-being, etc. And then if you are resilient enough, you are able to bounce back using positive coping strategy and go back to a decent level of food security and well-being. This is in very short what the concept of resilience means. So now, what is RIMA and how it relates to resilience? So the resilience index measurement and analysis is a quantitative approach. So with the RIMA methodology, you can measure resilience to food insecurity, and you can have various categories of households. You can identify the households. So you can see which are the most resilient, which are the least resilient. You can also use different profiles, for example, the gender of the household head. You can also use the location, so different villages, different regions, to understand which regions are more resilient, why, etc. And you can also understand why some households cope better with shocks. As I mentioned before, shocks, the concept of shocks is really at the heart of the concept of resilience. And then when you conduct RIMA-based data collections, so using the short RIMA questionnaire that I will present you later, you can conduct some impact evaluations, for example, or some monitoring analysis in order to inform policymakers. You can understand what is the impact of the project on food security and resilience, for example. You can understand whether the project contributed to mitigate the negative effects of shocks, etc., etc. So there are a lot of questions that can be answered thanks to the RIMA methodology and because of the logic that there is behind. So one very important point that you need to keep in mind is the fact that the unit of analysis in RIMA analysis is the household. And there are two main reasons for that. The first reason is the fact that in the households, the most important decisions are made about shocks, etc., etc. So it is really the unit where these decisions are made. And also when there is a negative shock or a positive shock, that can be, for example, an intervention, a project, then this is the household that will benefit from this positive effect, or that will suffer from the negative consequences of a shock. So basically, you need to consider the household as a whole unit that as a whole will have a sort of resilience capacity. So that said, what is basically how it works in practice? In practice, you have the resilience capacity index. So the resilience capacity index is, let's say, what derives from all the RIMA methodology. This is the index that you want to measure. And this index is based on 4 pillars. So 4 pillars of resilience. You have access to basic services, you have access to assets, social safety nets, and adaptive capacity. So these 4 pillars are at the basis of the resilience, of household resilience, and they will determine how the household can react, how it can resist to a shock without putting at stake its food security. So as you can see on the graph here, for example, you see that at the basis, like the 4 pillars of resilience are really holding the whole structure together, which is the resilience, the household resilience. And at the top of it, you have food security, which is basically the objective, the outcome of being resilient. You want to be resilient because you want to keep a good level of food security. So going very quick into the details of the various pillars, access to basic services relates to the ability of a household to meet basic needs. So for example, access to the ability of the household to access schools, hospital, etc., any type of infrastructure for the household, to make sure that all the household members have access to all these primary services. And of course, the closest the household to the service, and the better. The second pillar, which is asset, refers to productive and non-productive assets. So, for example, land, agricultural equipment, livestock, but also household assets. So, for example, cars, bicycle, etc. So, any type of asset that can that represent the wealth of the household. The third pillar, which is social safety nets, measures the capacity of the household to access assistance. So here we are talking about both formal types of assistance. So for example, from the government, from international organizations, from NGOs, etc. But also informal transfers. So from friends, from relatives, and also any types of networks and associations that the household can rely on in case of difficulty. The last pillar of resilience is adaptive capacity. So adaptive capacity is the ability of a household to adapt to a new situation and to rely on positive coping strategies and to develop new livelihood strategies when the household is hit by a shock. So, for example, a good level of education is a very important variable to measure resilience, because if you have a better level of education, you can have a better access to the labor market, and you can more easily diversify your income sources, for example. And if you have a more diversified source of income generating activities, you can easily rely on a second source of income when your main source of income is affected by a shock, for example. So these are in short, the 4 pillars of resilience, which are, of course, constituted of a set of different variables. So as you can see on this graph, this is very similar to the graph that I showed you before with the house, let's say. So at the basis, you have the 4 pillars that will determine the hazard resilience, so that you can see with the different arrows. And then the objective of all this is, of course, to maintain a level of food security, so in the presence of shocks. So food security is the outcome, is really the outcome of resilience, because you want to be resilient because you want to be able to keep a good level of food security when there is a shock. I'm sorry, can you mute your microphones? Thank you. Okay, so so now you might be wondering what type of data we can use for RIMA analysis in order to calculate the RCI. So there are 2 types of data you can use. Of course, you can use secondary sources. The LSMS data from the World Bank are usually good to conduct a RIMA analysis because they have the basic variables that you can use for RIMA analysis. Also, the mixed survey from UNICEF and any other type of surveys that basically include the variables you need. So the variables that you will then use to create the 4 pillars. Then the second type of survey you can use is the short RIMA questionnaire that we developed. And it's called the short RIMA because in the past we used to use let's say the long RIMA, but we decided to reduce the questionnaire to the minimum variables that are necessary to measure resilience, to measure the resilience capacity index. So it's the standard questionnaire. I'm sorry, can you mute your microphone, please? So it's a standard questionnaire that, of course, needs to be contextualized. So when we work with, I don't know, for example, Nigeria, we have the standard RIMA questionnaire, and then we working with people in the field, they tell us how to actually contextualize the questionnaire. For example, the different modalities of the questionnaire that are more adapted to the context. So the short RIMA questionnaire adapted to Nigeria might be different to the short RIMA questionnaire adapted to Madagascar, for example. So of course, we propose this standard questionnaire that needs to be then contextualized. So if you're interested, there is the link of this questionnaire, and we will make sure to send to share with you all the types of resources after the training. So yeah, it is presented as this, and one of the big advantages of the short RIMA is that the time needed for conducting the survey is drastically reduced. So I guess you all know that the problems related to a very long survey and the fact that the quality of the data really depends also on the length of the questionnaire. So so this is why we decided to develop the short RIMA questionnaire. So this is for the introduction on the RIMA methodology. So now I just presented like the theory. What do we mean by resilience? What is the definition of resilience that is at the basis of the RIMA methodology, how the RIMA methodology works. And now my colleague Roger will explain to you a bit in more details, a bit more technical, what are the variables that you want to use in the different pillars, etc., etc. The floor is yours, Roger. Thank you.
Yeah, Thank you, Jean. Much appreciated. So, Jean, can you give me the possibility to be co-host so that I can share my video and be able to have a bit of contact with participants?
Oh, yes, sure. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. Okay.
Okay.
You cannot turn your camera on if you're not, okay.
Let me check again.
So I need to put you as co-host maybe. Okay.
Yeah, for some reason it can't work. But for now, let me try sharing my.
Okay, so you are now co-host.
Okay. Yeah, I could share it now. Thank you. So, Jan, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone, and again, my name is Manzama Ojo. I'm an economist working with FAO Regional Office of Africa. So, Wale, good to have you this afternoon. Thank you for putting all this together. So, first of all, I want to thank Jean for putting or setting up the floor, having all this very good foundation on what we are calling resilience. And right now, the question you may have in mind might be like, what are we trying to measure, right? And I think you all have the answer. We are trying to measure the resilience of a household. We can also measure the resilience of a community, a region, or whatever, but we start from the household level because that's the unit we are observing. And in order to measure the resilience, we need to follow a certain number of steps, right? Jean clearly said it. We need to collect data from the household. So after the data collection, we need to clean those data because we can't just jump into the software and start the analysis without data cleaning. We need to clean the data. But beforehand, in order to get to the resilience capacity index we are calculating, we need to get the 4 pillars. So we mainly have 4 pillars which Jan presented, but we are having a 5th layer, which is food security, which is our intermediate goal, because definitely we are measuring resilience to food insecurity. And then from the resilience capacity index we have calculated, we can do some basic analysis on the community, on the region, or on the country where we have collected the data that we are using. So Jean said it already, the data collection works with a questionnaire. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a RIMA questionnaire, but you need in your questionnaire to have some questions which addresses the different pillars that we use to build the resilience capacity index. If you don't have those variables or those questions in your questionnaire, you cannot be able to compute the pillars. And because you don't have the pillars, there is no way you can have the resilience capacity index. So, and the questionnaire is applied to a household, but again, we can go and get the resilience capacity index for a community. We can get it for a region, a district. We can get it at the national level, and in order to make some analysis and find out how the unit we are interested in can first absorb the shocks and also cope with those shocks in order to bounce back economically. So the data clearing is very important, as you know, in most of the researches that you are doing. Once you have the data, you need to clean the data, right? Because you always have duplications, some household being interviewed twice or for some questions. The data was entered not very well, and you have to remove typos. You have to make sure that there is no errors in the data. If there are errors, you have to fix them. You also have to check for outliers, right? There might be some answers that doesn't make any sense, but there might be also some values that are definitely higher than what could be expected from an objective standpoint. And you also need to handle missing values. And this is very important because the Shiny RIMA software we use to do the analysis does not tolerate missing values. So if you have, let's say, 100 households, and there are 5 households that have the missing values, a unique missing values for a variable, the software will just drop those households from your analysis. So you have to find a way to deal with those missing values. And from your different classes, statistics or economic classes, you know that there are different options to deal with missing values. And you can find, depending on the data you have collected, the most appropriate way to control for missing values. You might use the mean, you might use the median, it's up to you. You can also look at a district level median, this regional level mean or whatever, but find an objective way to control for your missing values in order to have the maximum number of households in your analysis. So now let's go over the different pillars one by one, okay? Jean mentioned the short RIMA questionnaire that we are using to collect data in order to do the RIMA analysis, to calculate the resilience capacity index. And the first pillar that you mentioned was the access to basic services. So what that pillar is doing is to find out how close the household is to some very important services, including water points, including schools, including health center, including markets where they can sell their products or buy foodstuff. But it also takes into account the access to some services, right? Access to clean water, access to clean toilet, access to electricity. And that's what this pillar is capturing. Because depending on how close you are to some services, or depending on your access to a certain number of services, your coping strategy or your absorption of shock might be different. And we need to capture that into the resilience capacity index. And you have questions that are asking household the type of drinking water that they have, the type of toilet facilities that they are using, the main source of electricity that can help us find out whether they have access to any advanced type of electricity or not, the main source of energy, and how far the household is from different points, including water sources, primary school, livestock market, and others. And a quick point here, you know, when you ask a household what's the difference between their home and a school, they are giving you a distance like 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, right? And you have those numbers. But it doesn't mean that the household that takes 10 kilometers to reach the hospital should be accounted that way, because that means actually that that household had more challenges to reach the school as compared to a household that only take 5 kilometers. So in order to control for that, instead of using the distance to the point, we are using the closeness to the point, which is just taking the inverse of the distance that you have collected from the household. So by doing so, a household that spent 5 kilometers, or let's say they spend 10 minutes to get to a school, will have a lower score as compared to a household that takes only 5 minutes to get to a school. So remember that when you are calculating indexes of closeness or distance to different points, in order to make sure that all the variables are going in the same direction, for which the higher the number, the more the higher resilience capacity index we can expect from that household. So the next pillar is assets. So we need to measure for the asset of the household, because based on the assets of the household, they are having some responsiveness to the shocks that they may go through. And we need to know what are the productive assets of the household, which include agricultural assets. We need to have an idea of the non-productive assets, right? Their transportation methods and tools. We also want to know the land used by the household for the agricultural activities, the livestock that they are owning, the crop that they are harvesting. Knowing this is very important, because assets are critical for the household to not only absorb the shock, but also be able to respond to the shock. So in the short RIMA questionnaire, you will see questions such as how many assets the household own in terms of car, bicycle, electric cooker, mobile phone. We ask them question about agriculture materials, including machete, tractor, or plow. And we move on with how the purchase, like seeds, herbicide, fertilizers, and livestock feed, and so on and so forth. But the goal here is to have a metric of the asset, productive and non-productive asset that are available to the household in order to measure their capacity to actually bounce back from the shock. Next, to know the resilience of the household through the resilience capacity index that we are calculating, we need to have an idea of the social safety nets that are available to the household. And social safety nets include the household access to credit, right? If the household can go very quickly and borrow money from a source, that makes them, that increases their likelihood to actually have a solution to any shock that the household might go through. So that it's very important to control for that. But we are capturing the formal transfers that the household is getting from formal sources, government institutions, NGOs, formal banks, microfinances. But we also need to capture for informal transfers, right? If the household is getting any financial help from a household member living abroad or living wherever, that's supporting the household financially or through some materials, it's important to know that. Because if you have someone you can rely on when you are facing a shock, that actually means that you are likely to bounce back very quickly from a shock because you can get some support from an external source. And we are also capturing in this pillar the participation to different associations, because the more likely a household is part of different cooperatives and farmer organizations or associations, the more likely you can get assistance when you are faced with a specific shock. So most of the questions that are in this pillar are aimed to actually get information on those different elements, and based on those variables, we can actually get an estimate of the social safety net pillar. The next one is adaptive capacity. We said that the resilience is your capacity to absorb the shock, but also be able to bounce back, right? Which is the way to cope with the shock. And in order to cope with the shock, you need some adaptive capacity. And in adaptive capacity, we are including the education of the household members, because we consider, our hypothesis here is that the more people are educated, the more they are exposed to information, and the more likely they can find outside opportunities to actually cope with the shock, right? It's important to measure the education level of the household member. It's important to check for the number of income sources that the household have, right? Income diversification is a strong tool to cope with shocks. The more diverse your income sources, the more likely you are to have alternatives whenever you are faced with a shock. We look also at the number of crop produce, which is another way of controlling for diversification at farmer level. The more crops the farmer produce, the more likely they might have solution to some shocks. So we control for that as well. Participation in agriculture trainings, because trainings provide farmers with information and skills that they can use to increase their production. And we look at the work ratio, which is the inverse of dependency ratio. At the household level, we count the number of people who are active based on different, the international definition of active person. We count people who are active between mostly 15 to 65 and who can contribute to household activities. And we divide that with the household size in order to have an estimate of the work ratio. So once we have all these, we are able to have an approximation of the adaptive capacity of the household, and that pillar is controlled for as well in calculating the resilience capacity index. A key point that Jean mentioned when she was presenting is that we are basically interested in knowing how the household can actually be able to secure food for its members when they are faced with a shock. So knowing or having a metric for food security is very important. And we are not using only one, because metrics on food securities each of them have its strengths and its weaknesses. So it's always better to have at least 2 of them. And usually in the RIMA procedure, we look for household consumption. By asking questions, we get a certain metric of household food consumption. We check also household expenditure on food to see how the household have the opportunity to provide food from external sources, or if they can rely on their own production. So we look at household dietary diversity score, which is checking the different type of food that the household is using to feed its members, right? Because food diversification is important for a better health, and a better health is also linked with the household's possibility to absorb. When data allows, we can also calculate food consumption score, which is another way to control for food security. So the questions that you will see in this section, in the food security section of the short RIMA questionnaire, or any other questionnaire that can be used to do the resilience capacity index estimation, aims to get information on food security in order to control for that or include that in the RIMA analysis. So those are the different pillars for which we need variable, and to get variables, we are applying a survey through a questionnaire at household level. And once we have those data, we clean them, we are having our variables, we are ready to go to the software, which is Shiny RIMA, on which Benedita is going to develop very, very shortly. But before getting there, it's important to know that we have a large number of variables that we can use to calculate some pillars. And sometimes you don't always have information on all those variables, although you don't get those information. But at least the minimum that's required to do a very solid RIMA analysis is to get 3 variables in order to compute a pillar. You can't just estimate a pillar based on 1 variable or 2 variables. It's very low. At least you need 3. And the more variables you get, the stronger your analysis. The number of variables in each pillar must also be balanced. So you might not be using 3 variables for adaptive capacity pillar and having like 10 variables in access to basic service. It's creating an imbalance, and that's not helping. Remember, the RIMA procedure uses a combination of principal component analysis and maximum likelihood approach. It's kind of technical, but what I want to say is that you want these pillars to be balanced. Remember the picture of the house that Jean showed you. If in your house you are having 4 pillars, but 1 pillar is short, while the other pillar is very tall, you are not making a very good house. So have that picture in mind when you are including variables in different pillars. Another key element that I want to mention before letting the floor to Benedicta is to check for correlation between variables. It's very important. The more correlated 2 variables are, the weak your analysis of RIMA is going to be. So when you have, let's say, 5 variables and you want to select 3 or 4 of them, you want to check for correlation so that when you have 2 very correlated variables, you only rely. Sorry, can you mute your microphone, please? So what I was saying about correlation is like when you have 5 variables and you want to select only 4 or 3 of them, you want to drop the variables that are highly correlated with others. So when you have 2 variables highly correlated, you only want to keep 1 so that your analysis is stronger. This ends my part of the presentation. I will now leave the floor to Jean, maybe first to tell you a bit about the e-learning course on RIMA, and then Benedita will follow up with the practical part of the analysis. Jean, are you on board?
Thank you, Hojo. Yes, I'm here, of course. Thank you so much for this, let's say, more practical side of the presentation, which is a bit more technical, but fundamental, of course, for everyone who wants to then use Shiny to conduct a RIMA analysis. So yeah, Hojo, you mentioned the course, the RIMA course. So very quickly, we've been working at this course with the e-learning academy of FAO. So it's you can create an account, we will put the link in the chat. So it takes like 50 minutes to take the course, and you receive a certification badge at the end of the course. So
sorry, Jean, can you share your screen now? I stopped sharing mine.
Yeah, I think Benedetta will present right after. So
okay, perfect. Okay,
you can share it. So after the training, we will provide, as I said before, we will provide all the materials, the PowerPoint, and any other links that are useful, including the link to the RIMA course. So again, you need to create an account. It takes like 2 minutes, and then you can take the course and you can obtain the certification badge. It's very informative. You can have very more detailed presentation on RIMA, because this is let's say an introduction, but it's very informative. So I strongly invite you to take it. Again, it's not very long, and you just need to register on the e-learning academy. I will put the link in the chat right now, so you can keep track after. Thanks, Benedetta. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Does everybody can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. So now I'm going to introduce quickly the Shiny RIMA tool. As you can see from the presentation, you can see it. Okay. The Shiny RIMA tool is a new tool created to facilitate the measurement of the resilience index measurement and analysis. And this is an innovative tool to facilitate this analysis. What is, oh, sorry. Sorry for this. I have to go back on the slide. Jean, can you help me on this? How can I go back with the slide?
You can use the arrow on your keyboard.
Okay.
You can click on the left.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. So here we are. So what is Shiny RIMA and why it is useful? Shiny RIMA, as we will see soon, is a web-based tool and is also inside the FAO website, so everyone can use it. This tool allows to conduct resilience analysis rapidly and easily. What you can do with Shiny RIMA? You can estimate the resilience capacity index for baseline, endline, and also generating from the tool itself figures and graphs that you can use for impact evaluations report or technical documentation. Basically, what do you need to use the tool is a data set. That could be an Excel file or other types of file that we will see soon, and selected RIMA variables. As Joe already said, there are some rules to follow in order to select these variables. The fact is that the innovative fact is that Shiny RIMA is this analysis will takes only a few minutes. Indeed, before Shiny tool, the resilience capacity index could be calculated through other methodology like Excel RIMA that you might have seen in the video tutorial, Stata, R, or SPSS. Now the process is completely automatized, so it's very easy to do your analysis, and it allows to estimate the resilience capacity index in a few minutes. Another innovative fact that the tool gives is the possibility to interact with your data. So you could download your data, your graphs, and you can also simulate some shocks on the resilience. And with these graphs and your data, you you could use it for some slides for meeting or for presentation or for technical publication or for impact evaluation analysis. Now we can go through the tool. I have to stop and then reshare. Okay. Okay, here the tool.
Benedicta, please. I want to suggest we have taken 1 hour of presentation. Can we pause for 5–10 minutes and have some quick feedback before we go to the hands-on? Maybe there's a quick question. You can check the chat room to respond to them. Jen or Ujo can do that. And why we can take to practical.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Thank you, Wale. Indeed, there is the question and answer session. I kind of skipped this. I was urging for the presentation on China. So if there is any question, any point that you want to raise, this is the moment. Anything you want to clarify, do not hesitate. So we have time. So please, anybody who wants to take the floor, you can raise your hand and I will give you the floor.
Yeah, Jean, so while participants are thinking of their questions, there is a discussion going on in the chat section with Baibi. Baibi, thank you for pointing out that very interesting question on the distance to school or the time it takes to get to a school. So what he pointed out for those who didn't read it is like, whether you take 2 households, one which is rich, so that they can send their kid to, let's say, private school, but which is like 5 kilometers away from home, and they are driving 5 minutes to get there. And then you have a poor family that lives just nearby a public school and they can get there within a minute. Then the variable is actually creating some, is not telling the truth actually, because you may end up finding the poor household more resilient than the rich household. The point I wanted to mention is that this whole analysis is a multivariate analysis, which means that there is a reason we need to have different variables for different pillars in order to get the resilience capacity index. If the resilience capacity index was based on only one variable, it will be a univariate analysis, which would mean that any bias that you have within the variable would affect the capacity index. So it might happen, I agree with him that the accounting for the time to school might not be telling the truth in terms of the household wealth, but we have another pillar that's controlling for the wealth, which is actually going to capture that difference between the household. And at the end of the day, we are going to have a resilience capacity index, including social safety net and assets, which is definitely going to put these households in the ranking that actually tells the truth. And another quick point also, it's not because a household is richer that they necessarily are more resilient to other households. It depends on how they are rich, right? If their wealth is only, let's say, based on cropping, and for some reason there is drought or there is flood, it's going to definitely change the story, right? So those are things I want us to keep in mind. So please go ahead with your questions.
Thank you so much, Hojo. Yeah, this is practically what I was also trying to say in response to Balbi. Okay, so I see some hands raised. John Osa, rising John Osazua, please. You're the first in the list.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Please, when it comes to calculating resilience and for households, it was mentioned that, for instance, people getting gifts from some other communities or from abroad. Some of those gifts are not defined and may not be static. It can vary from one time to the other. How much does it affect the calculation of the resilience? Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood your point. Can you specify a little bit more, maybe?
Okay, maybe I believe like for calculating resilience of household, we may need to look at the income for the household, the basic income and other things that are available. Sometimes some other incomes like gifts from some persons may not be, we cannot guarantee how often they come in. So how do we factor in that to calculate the resilience? They may come in at a particular time and may not come in for a very long time again, unlike income that is monthly or weekly or daily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think I got your point. So everything that is gifts and other type of in-kind transfer is captured in the social safety net pillar. So the question is to understand what is the amount of informal transfers, everything in kind, it can be food or anything else, that the household members received in the last 12 months. And this is indeed it is captured by the social safety nets pillar as informal transfer received by the household. Does that respond to your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. It does.
You're welcome. Mustafa, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the floor, Pinar. And my question is will be addressed to Mr. Masamaso, his presentation, where he's making the point of distance hospital have to use to join hospital or something. This clarification, I'm very little bit confused, and I'm asking him if it was possible to make this clarification for me on the chat, or if possible, we have time to come back on these points for me. And my second question is that on the field, we are facing some time, or we face some time to a challenge where household or the respondent like being in the they are relating to give us the quality information, like, you know, when you ask how much you spend on your consumption in the 7 days past, they may not give us the really information. What are the attitude we have on the field when we are facing this kind of challenge? I don't know if you get the point I'm raising.
Yes, Mustafa, got them very clear.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Jan. So I will go on very quickly. So Mustafa, thank you for your questions. Actually, the first question is very interesting because in the RIMA analysis, in order for us to make sure that all our variables are going in the same direction, and by saying same direction, I mean the higher the value, the better the household. We are taking index of closeness. So the point is, assuming you are taking the distance to school or to the hospital, a household tells you that they are 5 kilometers away from the hospital, while another household is 10 kilometers away. So if you include that in the analysis like that, you are telling the software that actually the household that's 10 kilometers away from the school should be given a higher wage in the resilience capacity index, which is wrong. because they are 10 kilometers away, which means in case they have something going on in the household and a health issue, it will take them longer to get to the hospital. So in order to solve that problem, we are taking the inverse, which is when you take 1/10 as compared to 1/5, 1/10 is lower than 1/5. Then you are capturing the truth, which means that the household that's 5 kilometers away from the hospital is closer to the hospital as compared to the household, which is 10 kilometers away from the hospital. The same goes for the time to the hospital. Mustafa, is that one clear now?
Masamo, absolutely. Thank you very much for this clarification.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So on the second question, very quickly, I think that's an issue of, I will say, how we are training enumerators when they are going to collect data. And again, it's a long debate on how to get enumerators when trained, but if the enumerators are very well experienced, they have ways to make sure that participants to our survey are actually providing the more accurate possible information. You have to notice when a participant in a survey is tired or not, so that you know which question you can go first with. But if you don't handle the participants, sorry, can you mute yourself, please? Okay, so the point I was making is that this is not something that we have under our control, because it basically comes from the participant into the survey, and it's our responsibility, at least as people organizing survey, to train enumerators very well, so that they have good skills in order to manage participants in providing the most accurate possible information we need, so that our analysis is sound. Otherwise, the analysis will be telling something that's not the right information. That's what I would say. Maybe Jean or Benedetta has something to add on that one.
Thank you, Masamaso. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Thank you, Hojo, for the response. Okay, I was just taking care, because I see some participants are asking some questions in the chat, so I was trying to answer just very quickly. So one question was about whether the short RIMA questionnaire was adapted also at community level. So the short RIMA is the household questionnaire, so it has been designed to be conducted with households. So if you want to have it to measure resilience at the community level, the short RIMA questionnaire will not be adapted. So what we do when we want to monitor resilience, or to measure the impact of our project, our resilience project, for example, we conduct a RIMA-based data collection with the short RIMA, and in order to have some insights at the community level, we also conduct some focus group discussions or key informant interviews in order to get some more qualitative data that can help also understand the quantitative data. So yeah, just to answer the question, the response is very simple. It's no, the short RIMA questionnaire is really to be focused on the household, also because, for example, there are questions on food security, on food consumption, for example, which are very specific. So these are questions that are really targeted to the households. Just looking at the other questions. Yes, so there was one question about what is the advantages of Shiny RIMA. I think that we can, you will get your answer very clearly with Benedetta's presentation. Okay, Sui, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you very much. So you have already answered to my question right now, but please, if I can just have some details about this. In fact, if we don't really have some sufficient resources to conduct surveys with households, it is the way to optimize budget is to do it with community. So that's the case when I ask this question. So because in the agriculture census, for example, one of the pillar of the agricultural census is, for example, the community survey. So in the community survey, we do have the different different aspect that we are asked for, but in the community level. So I think about the access to infrastructure, about consumption, about all of these aspects. So we can really do it with the community. It will not be, it won't be the same level, the same analysis, but we can have a few information, few data about the resilience with this. So it will be just another option to deal with this data if we don't really have the budget or resources to do this. So is it the first one? The second one, if you may, is about if you do have any experience for other countries that conduct this questionnaire, but in parallel with other surveys, other questionnaire, where they have integrate some question to other surveys, not specific one to this RIMA. So if they are any experience about this, it will be great to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suir. I think that your question is very, very interesting, and you're raising a very important point, which is budget constraints, which is very much relevant in the context we are working. So far, we have never collected RIMA data at the community. So it's a very good idea, especially for the budget constraint that you're mentioning. And this is something that we can definitely think of. So, of course, we would need to redesign completely the questionnaire, and also, I guess, reduce the length of the questionnaire. And because, you know, a survey that is conducted at the household level is not the same as a survey that is conducted at the community level. So, yeah, we can think of some questions that would reflect the different pillars, but we would need to redesign completely the questionnaire. But this is a very, very interesting point. And for the second question, so if I understand well what you're asking, this makes me think of some discussions we had with Senegal, with the Office of Statistics of Senegal. So in the discussion, we mentioned the fact, the possibility to inject some RIMA-related questions into the annual survey. So this would allow the country to actually have some data they can use to measure resilience every year. So this doesn't mean that they have to attach the whole short RIMA questionnaire to their annual questionnaire, which won't be sustainable because their questionnaire would become very, very long. But very, very much likely they will have already in their questionnaire some questions that can be used for RIMA. So the idea is to look at their questionnaire, their annual questionnaire, and see what is missing, and add what is missing to this questionnaire in order to make sure that we have the minimum necessary variable to measure resilience. And this is something that is totally feasible, and this would be the ideal. because in this case, every country, I mean, if every country in Africa can do that, we will be able to measure the resilience capacity index every year, you know. And I want to mention also the Malabo Declaration, which is you know, that RIMA is one of the indicators that is used to monitor the achievements of the Malabo Declaration. So you understand that if every country, every 55 countries of the African Union has such a survey, it would be really, really great to be able to monitor the indicator in every country. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, very well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, Desaleng, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please,
thank
you
you very
can.
much. Yeah, thank you very much for the nice presentation. I'm Ayan from Ethiopia, Saba University, Center for Security Studies. So this is really a very relevant topic that we need to understand and so use for teacher, postgraduate students, MSc and PhD. Now, I think I just joined lately, may not be just fully listening, or but I would like to say unfortunately my video is not working, so I'm very, very sorry, but I'm also the East African region vice president for the image. So I would like to just ask you, it seems the RIMA is a really robust method to understand the food security status of household or individual, which are really very, very interesting. But as you know, all the food security measurements are indirect proxy. So what is the advantage of RIMA than the other food security measurements or methods? This is one my concern. The second, my point is, I think, as you know, the issue of food security vary in space, in place, also in time. So it's really need kind of contextualizing. So really, do you think this RIMA could really best fit to contextualized food security study? For example, I don't see from your presentation that whether this RIMA could capture the availability dimension of food security and also the stability dimension of food security. That means, in my understanding, it may be just really partially used to understand food security, or it may just ignore the agrarian community, the pastoralist community, which really need to be studied in terms of food security. This is my second question. So tools also need to be, I think, contextualized. For example, the utilization dimension of food security questions may not be really really work in different contexts. So do you think my straightforward question is that is the RIMA social-cultural fit to understand various community for security? So these are my concerns, but I would like to say thank you for just raising this very important topic. And also I would like to say thank you, my friend Walid, to just bring on board this important topic. I will just encourage my students, also myself, to just register and taught the course. Thank you very much.
Yes, Jan, I think that will be the last question so that you respond to it. I also have a question. Maybe I can say mine and you take it together before we allow Benedicta to take a presentation. My presentation is, even though some have said a few things along that line, I want to know what will be the, is food security the only outcome that we can measure with RIMA? Okay, if not, then what are the likely outcomes that we can also use RIMA to capture? The second point is, what is the minimum or optimal time space that you can, RIMA, you can only use RIMA when you have two endpoints, maybe the beginning at the end or something like that. So which is the minimum, how close would be the time? Should it be quarterly, monthly, yearly, or something? What would be the minimum closeness? Should it be quarterly or twice a year or a yearly or more? That's the second one. The third one is, given the challenge of data collection, especially the household, and given the need especially from the African Union to measure resilient capacity of household, or at least every 2 years from the Malabo Declaration. I'm thinking with the data challenge, is it not possible to use other technology to get data? For instance, remote sensing. If you can use remote sensing to get some of this data, there will be no need going to household to do it, because remote sensing can actually give us the changes in the data for a period of time, maybe 6 months or 1 year, and complementing with GPS and other technology, drones, and that are available. So those are my 3 concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Wale, and thank you, Ayal. Okay, that's a lot of questions. I will try to remember everything. So you had two questions of you both were about food security. So just need to keep in mind that food security is really, so the RCI is not an indicator of food security. It's an indicator of resilience to food insecurity. So in the estimation of the RCI, of course, we use some indicators of food security because in all the methodology, food security is seen as the outcome. So let me be a little bit more technical. If you can visualize the graph that I presented at the beginning of the presentation, you have at the bottom, you have the 4 pillars of resilience: access to basic services, assets, social safety nets, and adaptive capacity. These are the variables, the pillars, which are constituted by variables that will constitute let's say, the background, all the capital of the household that will give household members the possibility to be what we say resilient. But these are observable variables. Resilience is a latent variable. It's not something that you can observe in real life. You cannot see someone and say, okay, this is resilient. On the other hand, food security is also a sort of latent variable, but this is something that is a little bit more observable in the sense that you can, with the indicators that we have, and of course, no indicator is perfect to measure food security, but there are a lot of food security indicators that proved over time that they are actually effective in estimating food security. I'm thinking about the food consumption score, for example, which is an indicator that we very often use in the RCI estimation. And what we recommend is often to use 2 indicators of food security. One that represent the quality of food consumption. So, for example, the food consumption score, which takes in consideration the diversity of the diet of the household, with different weights allocated to different types of food, and an indicator of the quantity of food consumed. So, for example, food expenditure, which is an indicator of access to food. And so yeah, the idea is to have at least, these two dimensions of food security that are represented. But in the end, again, you have the food security at the top, which is our objective. We want to be resilient, not just to be resilient, because we want to be food secure. This is the objective. So we have a certain package of capital, which are the assets, the pillars. And all this together with the methodology. I don't want to be too technical. So this is why just try to visualize the graph. Okay, at the bottom, the pillars, at the top, security, and in between you have resilience. And statistics makes that it is possible to estimate this resilience in between, and which is the resilience capacity index. So this was for both of you's question on food security. And your second question was about time, which is a very, very good question. So the issue of time in resilience is very important and very tricky at the same time, because there is the issue, the aspect, the dimension of shocks in the meantime. So I would say that the optimal design for in the framework of a project, for example, okay, you want to measure the impact of your project on resilience. What is the best design? I would say that the best design would be to have a baseline, a midline, and then an end line, but with a higher time lapse between the baseline and the end line. For example, 2 or 3 years between the baseline and the midline, and then something like 10 years. This is of course very ideal, but due to budget and everything and how projects are actually designed, this is something that is more complicated to implement in real life. But in this way, you can actually capture the different dynamics of resilience, and especially because, okay, I'm not sure what's happening. So because you have
someone is sharing their video. I don't know who that person.
Can you stop sharing your screen? So
yeah, Jean, go ahead. I will look for the person and hopefully yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. That's Zoom homie.
Okay, so what was I saying? Yeah, the issue of time and resilience, because there is shock in the meantime, and actually what is more important is to look at food security, because if resilience has decreased, for example, from point A to B, but food security has remained at the same level, this can be counterintuitive, but in the end, you can see that the resilience capacity has decreased because, for example, you need to consider the variables that are inside the resilience capacity index estimation. For example, assets. Let's say that the household had to sell productive assets in order to cope with the shock. Okay, so this will reduce. So this will reduce the resilience capacity index at point B. But you would probably see that food security has remained the same because the household was able to convert its assets, its productive asset, into money to buy food, etc. So, okay, I'm not sure. This is perhaps a bit confusing. I don't know if I answered your question, Ayal and Wale. And then I think we really need to go for the Shiny RIMA presentation. But it's great to have this very active question and answer session.
There's a third one. Maybe you can quickly say it. Using technology like drones, remote sensing, GPS to get some of this data, especially when you have to do a national study. What do you think?
Yeah, yes, in fact. So for this, and this is also why the short RIMA questionnaire was designed, because since it's short, it's possible to have phone interviews, for example, which reduces the cost, reduce cost, reduce time, and also when some areas are inaccessible, for example, because different reasons, people can actually still be reached. And remote sensors, of course, this is a very good point, because and I think that this will be developed even more in the future. But this is exactly where we need to go in order to reduce cost and increase the data that we have at hand. Okay, so I think that we can go for the Shiny RIMA presentation. We have only 30 minutes left. So Benedetta, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay. Does everybody see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, I can see.
Okay, thank you. So we have to wait a moment until Shiny reload. As you can see, the tool is hosted inside Agri-Food Economics. That is our webpage in FAO. I don't know if it's taking too much time to load. I don't know why it's taking too much time.
Yeah, I think it's because your connection is using a lot of data, because we are a lot of people. Maybe
I know.
can wait a little bit and see. Let me check from my side.
Thank you, John. I will wait a little bit more and see what happens here. Maybe I can do this. Let's see. If we go there. There. John, is it right for your side or it's only my
Yeah,
issue?
from my side as well. I think our
Okay.
connection is completely full.
Because we are too many people connected.
Okay, let me just ask Anne 2 minutes. And
Okay, I will remain on the pages, so if it works, I will see it.
Benedetta, could it be because maybe some participants are connected to the site, that's why the connectivity has dropped or something? Maybe a lot of hits on the website, right? Would that be a reason? So if that's the reason, we can ask participants to log out, or if they're already logged in, so that you have control. I'm just thinking maybe that could be the reason.
Yes, thank you, Wale. Let's see what happens here.
Okay, let me just disconnect, see if it works, and I come back.
Okay.
Actually, I don't think I can do that because I am host.
You are.
Okay, can you try this? You disconnect, you see if it works, and then come back.
Okay, we'll leave.
I've never had such a high number of participants, so I really suppose that the problem is related to the the connection that is using a lot of data, basically. So
I see.
Yeah.
Yes, but we know we had 1,025, so we are just less than 200. Imagine if we have had.
Well, perhaps it's better like that in the end, because I don't even know if we could share the screen or something with 1,000 participants.
You imagine.
It doesn't work. So
Okay, let me. Anne is responding. Let me see what she's.
Okay.
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 Maybe just while we are trying to get this sorted out, maybe we can take some time to respond to some questions. Maybe we hear from participants now. I want to ask this question. Have you ever used RIMA? Or if it's yes or no, if you have used RIMA, can you share your experience? If you have not used RIMA, do you intend to use RIMA? Because the essence of this workshop is to have a network of people who are using RIMA to conduct the studies, whether as masters, PhD, or any level of consultancy. So what do you think would be your immediate use of RIMA? Maybe we can guide you. Anybody? You can raise your hand or just unmute your microphone and say something. So to keep the time running. Anyone? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Would you like to ask a question? That is.
This is Victor from Ghana. I'm following the proceedings for now, so I'll come in.
I'll come in later. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to have some feedbacks on the utility of these two. Do you think it's relevant to what you are currently doing? Anyone? Yeah. Victor, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, personally, like this one of the areas I'm very interested in, and I'm looking forward to doing more research in this area. For now, I haven't used RIMA, but I know with time I should be able to use it once I'm guided. So I'm looking forward to how things turn out at the end of the session. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just for clarification, in the type of research that you can use RIMA. Usually you can use it for a research that you want to see whether your intervention is getting some feedback in terms of improvement. Okay, so if you have a project that is, let's say at project level, because this is most practicable at project level. You have a project level, maybe it can be MSc, it can be PhD as a project. And to do that, you need a time space, maybe at least two data points at the beginning or at the end. So that's why I was asking the question of what would be the minimum time that you have. But I think the minimum time that you can observe a change should not be less than 6 months to have a change. So in this case, you can, if it's agricultural issue, you can look at maybe the dry season and the wet season, or the planting season, and we talk about on season and off season. At what point do people normally experience food security challenge, for instance? so you can see the 2 points to measure the difference. But if you have a project that just 1 year, maybe a master's project, I'm not sure you'll be able to complete that exercise of collecting data, then reporting, because your project at time may just be 9 months or less than a year. But if you have a PhD, it gives you a good latitude to work on the data and really observe the changes over some period of time. For instance, a PhD would take a minimum of 3 years. So of course you need the first year to develop your proposal and make your presentation. Maybe from the second year, then you go to the field or something like that. So for a PhD, it's most ideal if you are working on your project. But for other studies, national studies, then you need more time to do that. Benedict, I'm just buying time. So if you are, when you are ready, just let us know, right?
Yeah, Wale, I want to.
Okay.
Oh, okay, John, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that the tool is not working. So perhaps we can just very quickly finish the round of questions, and then we go with the Shiny RIMA. Please,
Okay.
Jorge, go ahead.
Yeah, John. So there is a question that someone asked about using data from different data sets. I was telling the person that yes, sometimes you have databases or some data sets in some countries where you don't have all the RIMA variables within the same data set. You might find them in different data sets, and therefore you need some kind of data extraction and doing some matching in order to have a data set that can be used for RIMA analysis. But I want to make it clear that if you are doing that for household specific variables, let's say education of the household or household access to, leave the access aside. I will talk about that in very short. So education or food consumption score or household food dietary diversification. Those are very household specific variables. You wanna have them specific for each household. You can take them from another data set on different household and just match them at village level or community level. It might not be telling the true story. But when it comes to variable, let's say, like access to school or access to hospital or market, and then you are missing those information in your main database or data set, that you see that there are some data sets where you can get those information from at village level or district level. Yes, that's the best you can do. You can approximate that at district or village level in order to run your analysis. Otherwise, you might be definitely missing that pillar, which will weaken the resilience capacity index that you are estimating. That's a quick one I wanted to say to answer the question from Alban Kano. Thank you. So Jean, back to you.
Yeah, back to Benedict, so you can go ahead with Shiny. Thanks.
Okay. Please tell me when you see the screen. Hopefully now it's working.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's start with Shiny. As I was saying, the tool is hosted under the FAO website. And so this is the front page. As you can see here, there are some tabs that you go on for your analysis. There is also a data protection policy. That means that the data set that you upload on the Shiny are completely protected. So let's start with the analysis. The first thing we need to do is to browse the file, the data set which we would like to analyze. So by clicking on browse, you can choose the file you want to use for your analysis. In this case, we are going to use an Excel file. So we click on the file, and the file is now uploaded. You must then choose the format of the file. In this case, as I said, we use an Excel file, but you can also upload as data, an SPSS, or a TXT. In the case of using an Excel file, you must name the sheet name as it is on the Excel file. So I will show you. In this case, this is the data set we are using, and this is the sheet name. So this sheet 1 should be put here. Inside the variable names, you must select yes, and then you can click on validate. By clicking on validate, your data set will be correctly uploaded into Shiny. The second step is selecting the variables you have inside your data set. So each variable must be put inside its own pillar. As you can see here, all the variables are named with the initial of the pillar to facilitate. So we are going to put all the ABS variable inside the access to basic services pillar. And this is to be done for each pillar. So asset pillars, you are going to put all your variable inside the asset pillar. Adaptive capacity, the same. And finally, social safety nets. As we were saying before, the number of variables should be balanced, and inside each pillar should be at least three variables. We are then going to select our food security variables, and then the tool is ready for the analysis. So the first.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just zoom a little bit in the? Yeah, perfect.
Better?
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
The first step for to start the analysis is to click on Input Overview tab. This tab provides an overview of your data uploaded, as you can see here. And by scrolling down, you can see also the correlation between the subvariables from each other inside each pillar. So by scrolling down, here is the graph you will see. So the correlation between the variables under, in this case, access to basic services pillar. In this case, the darkest is the color, the higher is the correlation from the between the subvariables. So you will have 4 graphs under each. And here is the first phase of your analysis. From each tab you are going to, you have the possibility, as previously said, to download all the data set and all the statistics and also the correlated graphs. So going on with the analysis, clicking on the resilience analysis tab, it will present the overall resilience result. So in this case, we have an histogram where the RCI distribution among the population as is shown, and you have also the average of the RCI, that in this case is 30.81. Scrolling down, you will have the graph that shows the contribution of each pillar to the resilience capacity index. In this case, the highest is the pillar, the strongest is the correlation of the pillar to the resilience capacity index. As we can see from the graph, the asset pillar in this case has the strongest contribution to the resilience capacity index, while the access to basic services pillar has the lowest contribution. Going down, there is the graph that shows the causal relationship between the variables and also the impact on the resilience capacity on the resilience, and the coefficient represents the connection strength. So in this case, you will see that the arrow is strongest inside the asset pillar. Scrolling down inside this resilience tab, there are also 4 graphs that explain the correlation of the subvariables with each of the 3rd pillar. In this case, the correlation inside the access to basic services pillar, sorry, you will see that the farthest from each subvariables, the farthest the point is from the center, the highest is the correlation. So in this case, the subvariable safe water has a strongest impact on the ABS pillar, while closeness basic services has a lower impact on the pillar. And you will have this graph for each pillar. Also, in that case, by going at the beginning of the page, you have the possibility to download this graph. By going on with the analysis, by clicking on the by profile tab, you will have the possibility to choose the profile you want. In this case, we select gender. Now click on validate and show the result. And here you will have the graph that shows you the average RCI by profile, in this case, gender. So you can see that the average RCI in female is 29.71, while in male is 30.91. So male are more resilient than female. By scrolling down, you can see why, because if we go through the analysis, we can see that in the case of male, asset pillar has a stronger impact on resilience, while in female, the pillar that most influence the resilience is adaptive capacity. So you here can see the contribution of each pillar to the resilience. By scrolling down, there are 4 graphs that shows you the correlation of variables with each pillar, but by profile. So it's the same as before, but in this case you will have 2 circles, one red that describes the male subvariables contribution, and the other one is in blue for female. And you can download also these graphs. Now, at that point, by clicking on output data, you can download your output data like this. And here you have all your data. And here is RCI. But you can also, at the end, you can click on extra features. Inside this tab, there are 3 features. The last 2 are under development. But by clicking on scenario analysis, here, thanks to this tab, there is a demonstration that shows how the RCI changes if a shock occurs. So in this case, the first thing you need to do is to select a variable under a shock. For example, we are going to select the variable under asset pillar, the agri-food index, agricultural index, and we suppose that this variable change of the 50% increase of the 50% to the 30% of the population. So here the description of the shock you are making, and here is the graph of the RCI and the new RCI with shock variables. So you can see it from the graph, but also from the statistical table. In fact, as you can see here, by increasing the variables of the 50%, there is an increase also in the new RCI from 30.81 to 31.28. While, for example, from inversing the variables, if there is a decrease of the 50%, for example, to the same amount of the population affected, as you can see from the graph and also from the statistical table, there is a decrease in the new RCI. And here the analysis is completed. You can download from each tab all the statistics and also the correlated graphs. And then going to output data, as I already showed you, you can download your output data set. So I stop sharing my screen, and now I give the floor to Jean and Ojo, and for some Q&A that I think there are some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benedetta. So we are a little bit running out of time, but with a little bit and make sure to take the questions if there are any. So you can see that from Benedetta's presentation, you can see that it is very very straightforward to use the Shiny RIMA tool. What is very important is to have a clean data set. And once you have a clean data set, everything is automatized. Okay, I see two hands raised. Please, Victor, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. That's a very great presentation. So with the RIMA, like over the weekend I was part of a research that was trying to look at deprived areas in Ghana, specifically Adan East and Adan West. And the research actually shows that these deprived areas are facing issues of malnutrition. And our research was meant to help bridge this gap. By going through this particular RIMA, like I think this can help me or help the team in doing an evaluation of the impacts this particular research is making in the area in terms of like malnutrition. So like I think I would talk to the team and see how we can adopt RIMA framework to make this this work, and also if I have any questions, I would actually contact one of the teams and then see how best we can be assisted. Yes, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Okay, Mustafa?
Yeah, thank you, Pina. I saw that after the presentation of the second presenter or third presenter, I forgot her name, but I saw that the use or the handle of the software, the Shiny RIMA is very simple and automatical. We can get the result. So last time, I think that in the chat, somebody asked the question that what is the characteristic of the future that make China RIMA different from the other software like R, MATLAB, and others. And I wanted you to make some, I don't know, explanation on it to give us a characteristic of the RIMA. And my second question is, what are limitations? What are the limitations we can expect from the use of RIMA, Chinese RIMA? And the third question, can we have the process behind the RIMA, like the probability distribution use, which kind of probability distribution you use? What can we have an explanation behind how RIMA works? This is my three questions. Thank you, Pina.
Okay, so I think you referred to the distribution that the first graph that appears on the tool, correct? This is the distribution of the RCI. Basically, it's a kernel density, and the idea is just to provide an overview of the distribution and highlight the average RCI, because this is what actually we are interested in. We are interested in looking at the average when we work on monitoring and evaluation, especially because when we want to understand the impact of a project, for example, on resilience, we want to measure the RCI before the intervention and after the intervention and see if, on average, the RCI has increased, and then understand if it is attributed to the project. For your other question, you were asking what is the value added of Shiny with respect to other tools? Is it correct? I'm not sure that I actually captured the other tools that you were mentioning.
Yeah, is that.
So which other tools are you referring to?
Yeah, like why not R MATLAB, something like that. MATLAB. Even Stata. Yeah, so the value added is enormous, basically, because so Shiny, you don't see it, but behind Shiny in the backstage, you have everything coded in R, because Shiny, and I saw this question in the chat before, why is it called Shiny RIMA? Simply because this is a Shiny package. It's called the Shiny package by the R Studio. And it offers the possibility to have this kind of interactive tools. And but everything behind is coded by R. So it's like automatizing a very high level statistical software like R, like Stata, and rendering it very accessible to anyone that do not necessarily have any skill in statistical software. So if you don't know how to use R, you can still calculate the RCI thanks to Shiny. So this is the real value added, is that it makes RIMA analysis very, very accessible to anyone. The only requirement, which is of course very important, is to have a clean data set. So as long as you know how to clean the data, and for this you can use either Excel, you can use R, you can use Stata, you can use any software from low technical or high technical types of software based on your capacities. And once you have your clean data set, you can conduct a RIMA analysis, no matter how expert you are in statistical softwares. Yeah. Yes, Mustafa, please go ahead. Yeah, I think that I have one question. I asked 3 questions. This last one is, what are the limitations we can face using Chinese RIMA?
Okay, I'm not sure this is a limitation, but let's say another requirement currently, because we are working on improving the tool, but you need to have not only the clean data, but also some indices calculated. So Hojo presented the different pillars and the variables that enter into the calculation of the pillars. And you remember there are some variables that are some indices that you need to calculate beforehand. For example, the agricultural wealth index. So for this, you can use again, you can use any software. We are also working at background materials. So Benedetta is working on guidelines and a data cleaning manual that can really guide you in the preparation of the data set, basically. And all the
I want to jump in with a quick point. So yeah. I guess the question is from Salifu Abu, right? Because it's the same question. There is the same question in the chat. So yeah, another limitation to add to what Jean said is what I mentioned when I was presenting. You know, if a household has a missing information for a specific variable. Shiny RIMA is systematically dropping those households. And that's why it's very important when cleaning the data and preparing the data set to make sure that you find a good way to impute those missing information for the households. Because losing some households, assuming you conducted a survey on a limited number of households, losing some household is going to be critical in the robustness of your analysis. So you might find ways to approximate those values in order to avoid those missing informations. So it's very, that's something that I want you guys to have in mind. Otherwise, Shiny RIMA makes life easy, and we developed this tool basically not for classical researchers who are familiar with SPSS, Stata, or other software, but for cadre focal points. And it's another set of things we don't really want to develop here, but we are supporting cadre focal points in monitoring and evaluation the CADEP, which is African Union Agriculture Development Program. So for those people, some of them are not clearly statistician, so we don't want
Ojo, you are muted, maybe inadvertently.
Okay, yeah, so what I wanted to say is that the Shiny RIMA tool makes things easy for those who are not very good in coding and who just want to have the RCI, the Resilience Capacity Index estimate for the household, and do some profiling, compare some household, some villages, and some regions. So another quick point, you know, the Shiny RIMA provides you with the estimate of Resilience Capacity Index, but it's also estimating for you the different pillars, which are the access to basic service, assets, social safety net, adaptive capacities. You might be doing other analysis, maybe answering some other research questions where you may want to control for those pillars in your estimation. So it's giving you some additional variables which you can include in other analysis as well. So the output that Benedetta show you, you can extract it, get it in Excel, import it in another analysis, match the household, and run your analysis as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this explanation. But I'm still having a question, and I wanted to ask, you know, the simulation when in the presentation of Benedetta, she showed us how to simulate in other feature tablets. And then I want to ask if I'm an economist, and we used to use the model of bioeconomy to make some simulation. I don't know, I wanted to ask if this model also is embedded, is incorporated in the RIMA, because what Benedetta showed us is just a simulation based on the sub-indices, but based on variation of sub-indices of RCE. I don't know if you get my point. I want to ask if bioeconomy model also behind the RIMA, and we economics can also use it to make some simulation on other factors, economic factors.
Please, which model did you mention again?
The bioeconomy is for most. We use it for climate change issue.
Okay.
This is my question. Thank you.
Okay. No, I mean, long thing made short. This is the first time I'm hearing the name of this model. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's embedded in the RIMA model. So the simulations that RIMA model is allowing you to do is to use those different profiling variables in order to compare and get some graphs in order to tease out some insights when you are reporting on your evaluation using Shiny RIMA. That's basically what Shiny RIMA does. But I guess if you have some coding methodology to do that kind of simulation, you can just export your output from Shiny RIMA and then import it in another software and apply that model to do the simulation as well. But as for now, Shiny RIMA is not accounting for that type of model. Maybe that's something we can explore in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you too. Someone is asking a quick question on whether we are having another session tomorrow afternoon. So Wale, let's make it clear to participate.
You have the answer. So we designed that this workshop will be for 2 days. Actually, the second day is to have you to take the practical session. But because of the large class, so we'll give you access to the websites to be able to take the exercise. And thereafter, we may reconvene at some point. Jan, you want to collaborate that?
Yeah, I think so. At the beginning, we were supposed to have 2 days of training. Then we saw a very, very high number. It was supposed to be more than 1,000 participants.
Yes.
But even with 150 participants that we have today, 130, in any case, we would not have been able to do the test in live, which was the plan at the beginning. So we were planning to, after this practical demonstration, to do the test all together. I mean, to have you take the test, etc. But the problem is that only a few number of people can connect at the same time on the tool, because this is like this for the moment. So we decided to move the second day to the first day and to have 2 hours for everything. But we have a follow-up discussion, I think, next week, Wale. So what we can, yeah, I think on the 7th, exactly. Yeah. So what we can do maybe is that, so you will be enrolled, all the participants here will be enrolled in order to take the test. So what would be great, it would be to have the list of all the persons that actually attended today, because so far we have the 1,000 people, the list with 1,000 people, but in the end it's just 10% that actually attended, which is still great. I mean, 130 is still a great number. So if we can have the list, and then Benedetta can enroll you, and you can take the test. So, and next week during this follow-up meeting, we can discuss. Perhaps we can also, I mean, anybody here can attend, and if you have any question, or I don't know, maybe you took the test and you didn't pass the test, and you want you have some questions because you don't understand why you didn't pass the test, or you are blocked because you have some interrogations, we can answer to you. So I think we can, yeah, we can do like that. What do you think?
Yes, I think that would be great. The only challenge now is that to get the list of those who actually participated today. I mean, to get 144, which was the peak, out of 1,025. I don't know. I'm taking the attendance of today, so I will compare and bring out only those who participated in the course. But if you don't, I will do that today, tomorrow. That's Wednesday. By Thursday, you'll be set up you will receive a mail to take the test, to take the online quiz and get the certification. But otherwise, if by Thursday you don't have any correspondence from me and you are sure that you participated, just get back to me via email. We'll try to figure out how we can do the enrollment on case-by-case basis this time around. We can't just create account for over 1,000 when we know that they didn't attend to this class. In any case, if you didn't participate, we wonder what you are going to do in the test. So I think that is the way to go. So with that said, we'll meet on the 7th, all things being equal. I think, should it be the same time, right? As today? Should it be 3 o'clock your time and 2 o'clock my time?
Let me check. I think Yes, it's at 3, from 3 to 4.
Okay. Yes, I think I wanted to share one other slide. In moving forward, we need to, there's this idea to have a network of people working with RIMA. Okay, so this is the announcement section now. Okay, so we're planning that all those who fully complete this course will be enrolled to another network. So I think it will be a type of tripartite network now, because this workshop is organized by Images. We also have another meeting that will be organized by AgroDev. Then FAO, of course, is the one facilitating. So we'll see how we'll reach that tripartite agreement. The next thing also, I don't think this will be useful again, because some people, when they registered, we have some on familiar character like arts, like some science, donation, alphabets, which we couldn't pick from the Excel sheet that we downloaded from the registration list. So we tried to contact some people, but there were a lot more people, almost 200 people out of 1,025 that had that issue. But again, since we are only focusing on those that participated in today's workshop, that will not be necessary again. So we'll take today's attendance sheets and we'll wait for you to say you have not received. By Thursday, if you have not received a feedback, just let us know. Or just contact me, then we'll have a way of enrolling you. But everybody must be enrolled latest by Friday this week. If you don't get back to us by Thursday, don't bother to get back to us again, because we really have to move. We want you to take the course online before our next meeting, and you will need time to do that, probably by weekend or Monday or so. The next thing also is, as I said, you take the online test. Then from there, automatically you generate the certificate, because many people have been asking, will I have a certificate? Yes, if you fully participated and you score good grades to do that. Also, thereafter, also during the meeting on the 7th, we will discuss other issues like, okay, your feedback from taking the work, the exercises, and find way of, if you have a current project, we'll see what we can assign a mentor to you. FAO RIMA has regional links in Africa, so we'll just attach it to the regional focal person. And in case you are developing a research proposal for things like this, yes, we are happy to collaborate with you to do this. And for further follow-up or anything, I can be reached via email and WhatsApp. Please do take advantage of these opportunities to learn and to improve. That's all from me. Jeff, over.
Thank you so much, Wale. So you mentioned the network. Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
So yes, I just want to very quickly as a conclusion. I forgot to mention that obtaining the Shiny RIMA badge will be one of the criteria required to be part of the network that we are establishing with Academia 2063. So very quickly, this will be an AgroDev RIMA network. So perhaps many of you already know about the AgroDev network. So the idea will be to offer some capacity building, technical support to the person who will be the member of the network, and specifically on RIMA and also on impact evaluation techniques. So yeah, as I said, obtaining the Shiny RIMA badge is a required criteria. So I strongly encourage you to take the test if you wish to be part of the network. There will be an official launch of the network, and I count on you, Wale, to invite everybody to the launch. Yeah. So yes, I strongly encourage you to take the Shiny RIMA test, and also the RIMA course. I will put in the chat the links to the Shiny RIMA, to the RIMA course, sorry, that I mentioned in the presentation. So this is for the English version, and let me put also the French version, because we have the course is available in both English and French, and I saw that there are some French speaker here. So yeah, so these are for the RIMA course, which is very informative. So I also encourage you to take it. Okay, so for those of you who will face some issues with the test, we can meet again next week. Wale, you can forward the invitations, and that's it, I guess. So thank you so much to everybody who participated in the training. Again, we are very, very thrilled, very happy that to see a high number of participants. It was a very active Q&A session, very interesting, very good questions. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Yes, before you go, I want somebody, images, interconnections from making Africa great, empowered, and sustainable. You had one of the vice president. We have vice president in the regions of Africa. And Dr. Desalegn, he has a question earlier. I just want him to do the formal vote of thanks on behalf of Images Initiative before we close. Yes. Desalegn, you are muted already. Go ahead, from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wale. Thank you all the presenters. Really, also I would like to say thank you for all the participants. Really, it was a very interesting presentation. We just learned a lot. I hope from the number of participants, you can imagine, and also that the topic is really very important, and really we need to just continue such knowledge and experience sharing. Thank you very much. See you in the next session.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll share with you the links to the recording and also the presentation. Bye-bye. In case you have more questions, don't hesitate to contact us. I will be glad to assist you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Wale, for the coordination.
Thank you, Wale. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Merci. Merci à tout le monde.
Bye,
Merci.
everyone.
Merci à tout le monde. Mais malheureusement, il n'y avait pas de traduction.
Good luck for the test.
Merci. J'espère que vous allez.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Aussi à vous.
Bye.
Bye.